What is music to make a change? This project believes music is the key to change the world. Music to Make a Change is a series of recitals that invites people to reflect on their lives and question their actions. With our music, we are inviting you to face the situation of the world as it is, so we can all make something about it. With music of living Black and Mexican composers, and with a glimpse of the life and opinion of all the people involved in this series, Music to Make a Change is gonna put a seed of change and a will to fight for all the change in all of us. There are two associations involved in this project, Castle of Our Skins and Racismo MX. They need all the help we can give. Now we can start by donating through PayPal. That way, they can keep fighting every day to make a change in the world. We need to be aware of our actions. We need to give love and be humble enough to accept the change. Because we all need the change. The world needs us to change. Then, what else do we need to do it? Let the music be the change the world needs. Hi, my name is Armando Ortiz Montenegro. Today in Música por un Cambio, we have the second part of Emanuel Varela's recital. Here, Emanuel is going to perform a piece by Dr. Adolphus Hellstork. It's just an amazing piece. It's just an amazing performance. And I'm very happy that you are here with us to hear this performance of this piece. It's just mind-blowing. The music is just amazing. First of all, I want to thank Professor Hellstork because, wow, his music is just mind-blowing. And also I want to thank, again, as I did yesterday, Emmanuel, because he's doing a great effort to be part of this recital series, and I truly applaud that effort. And I'm very thankful in my heart with all of the things that he's doing. Then, well, let's start. Hello, Dr. Helstork. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you?
I am great. I'm very happy that
That's
you're
good.
here with us.
Good, good.
Professor, can you tell us a little bit for the people that are not acquainted with you and your work? Can you tell us a little bit of who you are?
Well, American composer, born in Rochester, New York, grew up in Albany, New York, and studied at. I started early in music, junior high school, then straight on to college. Went to college at Howard University, the Manhattan School of Music, and finished up at Michigan State University with a doctorate in music composition. That's what I. And meanwhile, I started writing more than about 60 years ago, and I never stopped. It's the thing I like to do the most, and I've written a lot of different pieces, and many of them are published, and some are recorded, and that's me.
I mean, if for people that are not acquainted with your work, you have a huge catalog of music written, chamber music, orchestra music, solo works for solo instruments, for choral music. It's just amazing the amount of different kind of music that you have written across your life. And I wanted to ask you actually about the process that you follow on developing all of these different kinds of music, especially involving the elements of African American culture and African American history on your music. Can you tell us a little bit about this involvement on your music with these elements?
These things fascinate me. My first school was Howard University, which is a historically Black university in Washington, D.C. And that's part of my culture. I grew up primarily in a more Eurocentric culture in upstate New York. But I realized, especially because I came of age during the civil rights era, though I wasn't an active participant, that there's an issue here that could be addressed through art. And I don't always write with an ethnic influenced style, um, but sometimes I will mix it in, or sometimes I'll juxtapose it. Sometimes I'll do exclusively one or the other, Afrocentric or Eurocentric. Um, I love the spirituals. I've used them a lot, and I've set them a lot. But I also have used uh, touches of jazz, touches of gospel, touches of the blues, especially. I love the blues, and so I try to, I call myself a cultural hybrid, and I mix these two strains of music, and they're not the only two strains, but they're the primary ones of the Afro centric material and the Eurocentric, trained in especially the European tradition, but very interested in the traditions of my own people.
I remember reading in the things that I researched you before that you took a trip to Africa, and you got
Yeah.
inspired by it to write your second symphony.
Yes, yes. Um, I hadn't started out, the second symphony had started out as just a basic symphony, just to see what I could do with symphonic material after I'd run the first. And the first was kind of a warm up. And then the second, I started to write it for Leslie Donar. And then during the summer after starting it, I took a trip to Ghana. And part of that trip included visiting the forts on the coast where the soon to be slaves were kept in these dungeons before they took the walked the path of no return, um, and boarded the ships for America. And I was very touched by that. And so my second movement of that was influenced by that. And then a third movement was one of these deterministic movements where I take it's kind of got an edge to it that of determination. And then the third movement, a definite determination, the last movement rather, to project an energetic statement of a people who have been in the country 400 years and who want to say something triumphant, deserve to have something triumphant written about them. That's what I really believe. That's how the Second Symphony came into being.
I'm curious on, especially on the current situation that the society is facing right now with this whole, uh, awful situation that is happening in America. And you wrote a piece in honor to George Floyd recently. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact that this situation had on your music?
Well, I, as many people did, got very angry because I had never in my life witnessed a murder. And this was a slow motion murder right in front of the eyes of the world. And I was so furious about it. But I had been building up a lot of fury anyway, because a lot of Black men in this country have been shot by police with very, very little justification, if any. And shot or killed, in this case, killed with a knee on the neck. And I hadn't intended to write something, though this energy was boiling within me. And my friend, a poet named Herbert Martin, Dr. Herbert Martin, sent me a text. And he didn't say, he called it a requiem for George Floyd. And he did not say he wanted me to set it to music, but I wrote to him and I said, do you want me to recite this? Because it helped relieve some of the tension I had within myself. And he said, yes, he'd be very happy if I would. And so that's what I started. And it's going to be a piece that is about half an hour long. And it calls for 3 soloists, a large chorus, and a large orchestra. And it's called A Knee on a Neck, and subtitled 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
I mean, the message is very clear. And as you said, that there's a placement of emotions very, very clear, especially on the title. I mean, the title says it all, basically.
Yeah. If you ever saw the image, then the title does take you right to that image, right?
And you said that the music helped you relieve the tension that the situation made you feel. What other aspect of music that you have written has given you another kinds of emotion, like this powerful emotion that this piece that you are writing, that you are writing right now, is giving you? Is there any other piece on the repertoire of your music?
Well, there are a lot of pieces that do capture. What I try to do in many pieces is reflect both the tragedies and the triumphs of being an African American in the United States. We have a people here who've lasted for 400 years after being treated as slaves, living and dying in slavery. That blows my mind. Whole generations lived and died as slaves, and that keeps boiling around. It's like the molten lava in the center of the earth. And we've never had a day set aside in memoriam to those who died in slavery. And I've always been sorry about that. And I try to make some contribution to the legacy of the people. I mean, here's the way I think about it. So many kings, queens, and popes of Europe had pieces written for them, sculptures built in their honor, cathedrals raised, the whole 9 yards. And I said, well, don't Black folks deserve some cathedrals too? Don't they deserve something that talks about the heroism of continuing to exist in a country that doesn't even want them, has never acted as if it really wanted them? A recent basketball coach, Doc Rivers, I think it was, said, how can we continue to live in a country that doesn't love us? We love America, but doesn't love us back. And I think that my self-appointed job as an artist is to try to capture the hopes, the dreams, reflect the tragedies, and pay tribute to the triumphs of African-American people.
It's very interesting that you said that the music can achieve all of that. Like the music can achieve both portray the tragedy and as well given the importance that the triumph has, the triumph has on the world. And
Yeah.
it is very interesting to hear you said that this comparison between European popes and that kind of stuff with people that is just, they are just people and they're struggling in life and they're having these achievements that changed history, and these people that is not being considered as let's say as I'm gonna quote important as the popes, but they have made history across the world, the abolition of slavery and this kind of stuff. I'm very interested. I'm very interested. I'm sorry for my English. I'm very interested in how this triumph is portrayed as well, because some of the time we mostly focus on the tragedy, right? Most of the time, but how is this triumph portrayed? How do you portray this triumph on your music?
They kept going. Okay. The thing is, they kept going and kept achieving. And who was it? Maya Angelou wrote a poem, "And Still We Rise." It's about no matter how beaten down, no matter how many were lynched, no matter how many are shot 7 times in the back, no matter how many got passed over for promotion or were ignored by major opera companies, let's say. I just read an article in the New York Times about how the Metropolitan Opera is planning on taking this time to rethink its philosophy so that they can include works of Black composers. Now, that's wonderful. But that kind of thing, I mean, look what happened to a famous singer at the end of her career, finally was the first Black to ever sing at the Met. So there's so many firsts still being done. And the people as a race keep fighting on and keep holding on despite all the tribulation. And I think that was worthy of a salute.
I'm glad that you pointed out this rethinking of the ways that the music, in this case, music industry works. What has been your experience regarding the part of music education? Do you think that in music education there is this element of racism involved on it, or how do you think is music education at this point, or in your experience?
Yeah, music education is currently also being reviewed because so often, you study, if you have a music history course, for instance, never covers African-American history. It's very rare, let's put it that way. It wasn't until I was working on my doctorate that it became a subject of interest, and a woman named Eileen Southern wrote a book on the music of Black Americans. And that educators have at least added jazz programs to curriculum, et cetera, as if that's the only way that blacks express themselves. The black musical canon is so vast and has so many subcategories that it's hard to cover it all. And uh, I think that there's a new sensitization of what it means to look at a people and what they've developed and try, I hope, to go beyond just the pop element of the day. If I happen, the popular music of America, especially, has been strongly influenced by African American kids and African American artists and who've done wonderful stuff, and that's great. Now, is there a place in the classical canon to include some blacks? And I'm hoping that there is. I didn't spend 60 years doing this so that my stuff would be thrown away. It's things are opening up, but this happens it happens sometimes in patches. For instance, I experienced something similar to this back in the 80s when they decided to have a Martin Luther King holiday. I knew then that there were breezes of interest going around about looking for music of black composers, and here I was, and I had the good opportunity to be heard back then. Now this is recycling again. Here we are 20 years later, and now interest in black classical music is recycling again. Music educators have a large part to play in it, and they've got to get away from the Eurocentric bias. That's all.
That's the part of the education, but in the part of the music industry, in a professional level, how can the orchestras keep this programming of different kinds of things besides the Eurocentric tradition, besides this white tradition? How can they keep making these programs where they include music by African American composers, especially the ones that are alive at the moment, and stop being and for them to stop making this trend that needs to be every like 20 years, as you said? How can this thing can keep happening?
Well, they have to want to. This is being reviewed right now by the Association of the Leagues of Orchestras and Conductors, etc. The new conductors coming up have to be conversant, have to show interest, have to research. Orchestras have to find the material's out there. The material is out there. The names are out there. They have to want to, and they should feel, I hope, an obligation and also a desire to increase their audiences and to inform their audiences. So, I get played somewhere almost every month, and so people who go to those concerts, they see the African American guy, and they hear music, which I hope is challenging, but I hope is also intriguing and attractive to them. So they have to get convinced, and this is where your question about education comes in. They have to get convinced that it's a worthwhile venture. I mean, after all, African Americans are part of the society, just as Latinos are, and we've got to open up. They have to open up the box of goodies. I mean, the orchestra is supported with tax dollars. Everybody pays those tax dollars. I remember making this argument many, many years ago. And so we're not going to try to hold a gun to orchestras' heads, but orchestras do get support from by taxes of the general population, and it would be very nice if they were responsive to all of the people, not just some of the people.
In this case, Professor, you said something very important that I wanted to highlight, that the duty for the orchestras and the conductors and these new generations is not only to perform a piece and just call it a day, but to inform themselves and to inform the audiences about these elements that are present in the history, that are present in our current society, and they need to be addressed. And these elements of people, these elements of music, these elements of genres, they need to be addressed and they need to be researched. Can you, Professor, can you tell us for the new generations of African American musicians, composers, and also for any other part of the American vast culture, the Latin American musicians, something that that they can hold on to, for them to not lose hope, or for them to identify themselves, because a problem that this new generation are facing is that they don't have anyone to identify with. Like a German musician can identify with Mozart because Mozart is German, but but there are examples of people. There are examples of success, but they are not being pointed out. So the new generations can see that they are doing something and they can achieve something. Can you tell something for these new generations, please?
First of all, I've never been a strong believer that in order to accomplish something, it had to be accomplished by someone of the same race. I mean, when I started writing music, I didn't even know there were Black composers, and I had never heard of Florence Price or Margaret Bonds, Chevalier Saint George, just had never heard of them, and but that did not stop me from wanting to make music. I wanted to write classical music. That's all there was to it. And I didn't have an idea, well, you're not supposed to because you're Black. And that kind of craziness. And I just, so that's one thing. So if you're a student and you want to write classical music, go ahead and write classical music. The other thing is, in terms of what the orchestras can do and other people can do, now with the internet available, you can find out about the entire world of Black classical composers. So there's a list a mile long on a program. Just write in Afro classical, and you'll see. Go to the website that has a list of African American composers, and or if you just look right in a generic word title like African American composers, write that in Google and see what you get, or Black composers and see what you get. There's a whole lot of information. So there's nothing to be disheartened about if you're interested in going into the field. And if you're interested in pursuing it as something to conduct or perform, the information is there. The information is there. So I am much more optimistic now than I was when I was a kid. But I didn't care that much that the societal aspect when I was young. I simply wanted to write classical music, and I just loved writing music, and I've been doing it for 60 years, and that's it. I never stopped.
You people heard it. Just do it. If you want to do it, just do it. That's it. You don't
Right.
need to have. And also, as well, you said something very important. We have the technology right now to inform ourselves. We don't need to depend on the knowledge that maybe schools are giving us. We can go in other time of the day, just Google research. There's
Sure.
plenty of information out there, and
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you pointed that out, Professor,
Yes.
because that's, I mean, we need to also be encouraged to do research, right?
Yeah.
There, there is that
It,
element.
the conductors and performers especially have to. And if you're a young composer, you could also look it up yourself. I don't know how I would have reacted if I were coming along now at the age of 16 or something, and said, "Well, gee whiz, I want to write classical music." I didn't ask myself, "Is it possible?" I remember only one question I asked my mom when I was young, and that is, "Where are the black composers?" And so I just said, "Well, here I am." Like that. Back when I was young, and back in the 50s, 1950s, for some reason, there was a debate going on about whether Beethoven was black.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
I've
said,
heard that. I've heard
yeah,
that.
yeah, I said, who the hell cares if Beethoven was black? Just, so it was, if he was or he wasn't, I'm here. It's just that I mean, it seemed to me either whites were so defiant that they would say absolutely not, or blacks were so desperate they say he absolutely was. And I always thought that was stupid. The thing to do is just see if you could write a piece that would stay on the same concert, that would be programmed on the same concert as Beethoven, and I have. So I don't worry about that stuff anymore.
Well, it is great to hear that kind of optimism and that kind of that attitude. There's plenty of people, and I include myself, that sometimes we need that attitude. Just go for it. Just do it. If you
Yeah,
haven't found anyone that has done it, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that you need to do it.
yeah.
And
There you go.
yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, Professor, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this amazing conversation that we had today. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and get to talk to you. And I bet that the audience that is watching us today, it's as delighted as I am.
Uh,
Um,
Thank you.
do you want to add something else before we close the interview?
I'm fine. I thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thank you very much. And um, let's keep hearing your music. I invite everybody to hear Professor Hellstork music, because it is an amazing catalog. I do one of my favorites is the Third Symphony. I recommend highly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, especially
Glad.
the beginning of the symphony is just amazing. It's
Uh-huh.
just for the people
Yeah.
that like trumpets, they have a trumpet there for you guys.
Yeah, that trumpet player almost killed me after the recording. After the world premiere, when he had to do it live.
I bet
But
he was sweating a lot. I mean, at the end,
yeah,
he was.
he got his part earlier than everybody else. Smartest thing, David Lockington was the conductor, and he said the smartest thing I ever did was sending that part to him early. Yeah.
Well, it was worth it. The recording is beautiful, and thank you again, Professor. Thank you again for being here,
Sure.
and
Sure.
thank you everybody for listening to this amazing interview.
Well, thank you. Have a good day and stay well.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's recital and today's interview with Professor Hellstork. I truly believe that there's a lot of things that we learned from yesterday's recital and today's recital, and the interviews were just amazing. Thank you, Professor Hellstork, for everything that you told us, for all the knowledge that you gave us. Thank you, Emmanuel, for your perspective in a lot of things that we learned from you. Thank you for all your effort. Thank you for your music, Professor Hellstork. And thank you guys for being here. Thank you for opening your heart, opening your mind and your soul to accept the change, to accept that we all need to change. And this is the time to do it. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media in Facebook and Instagram as Música por un Cambio. Follow us in this channel, Armando OMC. there's a bunch of videos that if you want to see it, every interpretation that has been going on this recital series and the last recital series that was dedicated to give a thank you to all the health professionals here in Mexico for fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. It's just amazing. So feel free to subscribe, give a comment, and don't forget to give your donation to Castelo for Skins and Racismo MX, these two associations that are fighting every day to give us a better world. Here in the description of the video are the links so you can make your donation. You just need to make a PayPal account. And next week, let me tell you what's going to happen next week. Next week, we're going to have an amazing talk with a person that is just so knowledgeable. He's an amazing human being. She is from the INA, Instituto Nacional de Arqueología y Historia, National Institute of Archaeology and History here in Mexico. And she is Dr. Maria Elisa Velázquez. She is just an amazing person. She knows so much, and she's gonna teach us so much about what's happening here in Mexico, about the history here in Mexico, and all the truth that probably we didn't know about our society. So tune in next week on Sunday for this amazing talk that we had with Dr. Maria Elisa. See you next week. My name is Armando Ortiz, and let the music be the change the world needs. See you soon.